Scotty's rings are just the same as Michael Jordan's. Why not?
Because he won the best player on the team.
Yeah, but he was the most impactful player on the team.
I get it.
What do you mean he wasn't?
Listen, I get it.
If you unplug Scottie Pippen off that team,
sure,
Jordan's 0 for 6.
I think they're trying to launch another podcast, and what a better way to do it than to keep bringing MJ name up. And you got to bring MJ or Kwame name up. You know, we hot out here, but especially MJ. MJ hadn't played basketball in umpteen years, but everybody and their mama brings up MJ every single day. MJ name is brought up. So
Rich Paul said if you unplug Scottie Pippen from the Bulls, Michael Jordan is 0.
And Kwame Brown wasn't going to let this one go. He went right after Rich Paul and Gilbert Arenas, exposing the whole thing for what it really is, a paid campaign just to hype up LeBron James. Kwame didn't hold a single thing back. Let me know in the comments, do you think there is such a thing as a sidekick ring? Or is Kwame Brown right that a championship is a championship no matter who you win it with? Let's start with the exact comment that set Kwame off, because his entire reaction builds from there.
The same.
Right.
They're just not. Right. Scottie Pippen rings, those 6, they're not the same as Michael Jordan. They're just not. Right. Scottie Pippen rings, those 6, they're not the same as Michael Jordan's.
Right.
They're not the same as LeBron James.
But they're pretty good.
But they're good. They're good. If there's some sidekick rings, if there's some sidekick rings,
I think Scotty's rings are just the same as Michael Jordan's. Why not?
Because he was the best player on the team, period.
On the team.
Yeah, but he was the most impactful player.
I get it. Rich Paul said on his podcast that if you take Scottie Pippen off those Bulls teams, Michael Jordan goes 0 for 6. From there, the conversation turned into this idea that Pippen's 6 rings somehow don't count the same as Jordan's 6 rings. That right there is exactly what made Kwame lose his mind. Because the second you start ranking rings by whose was shinier, you aren't talking about basketball analysis anymore. You've entered a whole different world.
What do you mean he wasn't?
Listen, I get it.
If you unplug Scottie Pippen off that team,
sure.
Listen, I get it.
If you unplug Scottie Pippen off that team,
sure.
Jordan's 0 for.
Sure, but honestly, who really knows? Could be.
Could be.
But look, what if you replace Scottie Pippen with another all-star? Truth is, nobody wins it all without another all-star by their side. You just can't do it alone.
No, you got another all-star.
He is definitely going to win more than one.
You can replace him with another all-star, but just because it's an all-star don't mean it's Scottie.
Kwame's first point cut right to the heart of the matter. Scottie Pippen's rings are the exact same as Michael Jordan's. Same year. Same banner. Same everything. There is no world where one player's ring is worth more than their teammates. The owner didn't put extra diamonds in Jordan's ring and give Pippen a cheap version. They won together. They share the success. That is exactly how a team works. So when people try to argue that Pippen's rings count less, Kwame's response is simple. By that logic, is LeBron's ring any different from Mario Chalmers' ring? No, it's the exact same ring. They won it the same year on the same team.
Scottie Pippen rings are not the same as Michael Jordan. So you saying the Scottie Pippen ring is more tonight or something? What the fuck is you talking about? Scottie Pippen ring is the exact same. It's the exact same year. It's the exact same everything. So is LeBron James rings different than Mario Chalmers rings? No. It's the same damn ring. Like, they just get up here and just say stupid shit.
And Kwame nailed the deeper point about why people even talk like this. The only people who try to dismiss someone else's championship are the ones who never won anything themselves. It's pure jealousy. It's the kind of talk you hear from someone who is bitter about not having a ring, so they try to tear down everyone who does. Kwame put it perfectly. That would be like him being salty about not having a ring and claiming Matt Barnes or Nick Young only won sidekick rings. There is no such thing as a sidekick ring. That is a fake concept made up by people who have 0 rings just to make themselves feel better.
Are going to be willing to take a back seat knowing
100%.
Every single all-star who ever lived, 100% of them.
Whoever lived.
That's not true.
That is just not true. If you are playing with Jordan, you don't have a choice.
No, that's not true because, again, this is where you got to really dive into the type of player. You're talking about just all-star, okay? Remove that, all-star. But you're talking about a guy that's 6'9", that plays both sides of the ball.
He's 6'7".
6'7", whatever. He got a 7'3" wingspan, right? He can initiate the offense. The best, you had 3 guys on that team, Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, that were on the all defensive team. 3.
Ron Harper should have been on it too.
Ron Harper, another, and that was after Harp had.
Now, here's where Kwame exposed the real game being played, and this is the part that makes his whole argument click. Rich Paul and Gilbert Arenas are not having an honest basketball conversation. They are pushing a narrative, and it's always the same goal: tear down Michael Jordan to lift up LeBron James. Watch how they do it. To hype up LeBron, they suddenly need Scottie Pippen to be so good that Jordan couldn't have won a single game without him. So they build Pippen up. They call him the most impactful player on those Bulls teams. They elevate Pippen specifically to use him as a tool to take away from Jordan's greatness.
Down.
Nick Young ring is a sidekick ring. No, that's just for jealous niggas that they ain't get no ring that will find any reason to disqualify other people that have one. So this is another way of them trying to. First, Scottie Pippen is not as good as he is, because if someone says Scottie Pippen is just as good as LeBron, he may not be as athletic, but he got a bigger bag than LeBron, they will take apart Scottie Pippen. They'll say Scottie Pippen sucked, this isn't that. But
here is the contradiction Kwame caught them in, and it is beautiful. These are the exact same guys who go on Gil's Arena and say the 90s era was trash. Brandon Jennings said it was trash on that very same show. So which is it? Either the 90s were full of great players, meaning Jordan dominated great players, or the 90s were trash. And if the era was trash, how is Scottie Pippen suddenly so incredible that Jordan couldn't win without him? You can't have it both ways. You can't say the era was weak, and then turn around and say a player from that exact era was so dominant that the greatest player ever couldn't function without him. They only build Pippen up when it helps them tear Jordan down. The second the conversation shifts, Pippen goes right back to being a product of a weak era. Kwame pointed out that this exact same double standard happens with LeBron's teammates. Every single time LeBron has a great roster, the media and the LeBron camp work overtime to minimize how good those teammates actually were. When you point out that LeBron had Ray Allen, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, and Kevin Love, who was one of the best power forwards in the league at the time, they immediately say, oh, they weren't actually that good. They downplay Kevin Love by focusing on how he just stood on the wing instead of admitting he was an elite star before he got to Cleveland. They do whatever it takes to make LeBron's help look smaller so LeBron looks bigger. But the moment you apply that exact same logic to Jordan, the rules completely change. Suddenly, Jordan's teammate is so good that Jordan would be nothing without him. The standard completely reverses depending on which player they are trying to protect.
For LeBron, the teammates were never that good. For Jordan,
For LeBron, his teammates were never that good. For Jordan, his teammate was so good he carried the entire dynasty. That inconsistency is the giveaway. Proves this conversation was never an honest critique. It was always about reaching a set conclusion that LeBron is the greatest of all time. Kwame's point is simple. If you're going to play this game, you have to play it both ways. If Jordan couldn't win without Pippen, then we have to ask the exact same thing about LeBron. Is LeBron a champion without Dwayne Wade? Kwame says no. LeBron had to go to Miami just to learn how to win. Remember 2011? J.J. Barea and Jason Terry locked him down in the fourth quarter, and LeBron totally vanished in the finals against Dallas. Without that Miami Heat team, and without Wade teaching him how to close games, LeBron doesn't become a champion. And what does LeBron's resume look like without Kyrie Irving hitting that massive shot in 2016? Without Kevin Love? Without Anthony Davis? The rule is that a superstar gets zero credit when they have an elite co-star, then that rule has to apply to LeBron too. But Rich Paul never applies it to LeBron. He only uses it against Jordan. The honest truth that Kwame keeps coming back to is that basketball is a team sport. Every single champion needed help. Magic needed Kareem. None of the Celtics won without Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish. LeBron needed Wade, Kyrie, and Ray Allen. Jordan needed Pippen. That's just basketball, and you can say it about every single player who ever won a title. Yet, nobody runs around saying Magic would have 0 rings without Kareem. Nobody calls Larry Bird a fraud for playing with Hall of Famers. This fake rulebook only comes out from Michael Jordan, specifically because Jordan's perfect 6-4-6 finals record is the one thing LeBron can never touch. Kwame also defended Pippen the right way here because he wasn't disrespecting him at all. He made it clear that Pippen was a legit superstar. Pippen even took the Bulls to the playoffs when Jordan left. You can easily argue that, skill-wise, Pippen had a much deeper toolkit on both offense and defense than people give him credit for. Pippen guarded the best scorer on the opposing team every single night. Kwame even pointed out that Gilbert Arenas, who never played defense, has absolutely no clue what that takes. Guarding the best player on the floor every single night while carrying your team is exhausting, elite-level work, and Pippen did it. So, if anything, Kwame was lifting up Pippen's real contributions while rejecting the shady way Rich Paul used Pippen as a weapon. That's the big difference. Pippen was impactful. Rodman was impactful. Tony Kukoc, Steve Kerr, Ron Harper, Phil Jackson, they were all impactful, and you needed every single one of them. But being impactful and being more impactful than Michael Jordan are two completely different things. The only reason anyone claims Pippen mattered more than Jordan is to push the LeBron agenda. Kwame's issue was never with giving Pippen credit, it was with the dishonest reason behind it. Then Kwame got to the real why. Why are Rich Paul and Gilbert Arenas doing this? The answer is money. Pays to hype up LeBron. If you go on a show and say LeBron is the GOAT, 9 times out of 10 you get your own show. You get tight with the media, you join the club, and suddenly you check your email and there's a new streaming deal waiting for you. Gilbert gets another massive podcast contract. Rich Paul keeps thriving as an agent. The whole system rewards people who push the LeBron narrative, and it ignores the people telling the truth. Rich Paul has the most obvious motive of all. He is LeBron's agent. His entire brand, his agency, and his income are completely tied to the LeBron James business model. Of course, he's going to push stories that elevate his client. That is literally his job. Kwame called it part of his contract at LeBron James Incorporated. You protect the king by any means necessary, even when you sound crazy. That's just what you do at Klutch Sports. You make LeBron look like the GOAT, no matter how ridiculous the argument has to get. Part that really bothered Kwame is the hypocrisy around clickbait. Rich Paul will never admit he's baiting people for views, but when regular content creators do it, it's suddenly a problem. Kwame was totally honest about his own style. He trolls, makes jokes, and talks his talk. His issue with Rich Paul is that Rich does the exact same thing while pretending it's serious basketball analysis. If Rich Paul would just admit he's trolling for fun, nobody would take it seriously and everyone could move on. But when you disguise an agenda as honest analysis to tear down Jordan, that's when people snap. That's when Kwame calls him a fraud, just like his king. Kwame also compared how Jordan and LeBron lead, and this is where it got personal. People respect Jordan because he got in the trenches and did the work himself. If Jordan yelled at you, it was because he just dove on the floor and nearly broke his shoulder while you stood there watching. He led by example. He was the best player in the world, yet he still played hard defense, gave everything physically, and earned the right to demand more from his team. LeBron, on the other hand, will tell his teammate to play defense while he saves his energy for offense and hangs back. He famously screamed at Mario Chalmers to play defense, and Chalmers fired back, telling him to stop acting like a baby and just play basketball. Kwame's question was simple. Do you think anyone ever said that to Michael Jordan? Nobody told Jordan to stop crying and play because Jordan was doing everything on the floor. Kwame also made a sharp point about LeBron's teammates. Look at how many players leave LeBron and do great elsewhere, like Alex Caruso. To Kwame, it shows a pattern of players wanting to get away from a guy who points fingers and blames everyone else when things go wrong. Jordan stayed in the trenches with his guys. LeBron directs from above while keeping his own image clean. The funny thing is, LeBron claims he didn't need Dwayne Wade, yet every single year of his career, the media and LeBron himself talk about how many more players he needs around him. The bottom line is that you can praise both Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan without tearing one down to lift up the other. You can admit Pippen was a legend and completely necessary to those teams, while still recognizing that Jordan was the engine making it all run. We literally saw what happened when Jordan left to play baseball. Pippen carried the Bulls to 55 wins, but they crashed out before the finals. That was Pippen's ceiling without Jordan. He had his chance to win without Mike, and he couldn't get it done. That's not a diss to Pippen, it's just the truth of how the dynamic worked. Kwame's frustration is that none of this talk is in good faith. It's all about building a narrative for the king. Rich Paul could have just said Pippen was impactful, and that would have been a fair point. But he had to take it all the way to 0 for 6, because being fair was never the goal. The goal was to diminish Jordan to elevate LeBron, because that's what the job at Klutch requires. Push the narrative even if it sounds insane. But Kwame's final stance is the one that actually holds up, no matter how many podcasts try to rewrite history. LeBron James will never be better than Michael Jordan. You can try to minimize Jordan all you want. You can use Pippen as a weapon, downplay LeBron's teammates, and inflate Jordan's help. You can do all the mental gymnastics the agenda demands, but that 6 for 6 finals record isn't moving. The GOAT conversation doesn't change just because someone has a bigger media machine. People pushing the LeBron narrative are doing it because it pays, not because it's true. That is the whole story. Follow the money, and Rich Paul's argument explains itself. Kwame Brown exposed the entire game. There is no such thing as a sidekick ring. The same people calling the 90s trash suddenly need Pippen to be a superstar. And the only reason any of it gets said is because hyping up LeBron makes money. Jordan stays the GOAT. Like the video, subscribe to the channel and drop your honest thoughts below.